Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you may be today. Thank you for joining myself and my colleague Matthew for our Sage Intacct demo. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Again, my name is Terry. I'm a sales consultant with Vision 33. I'm joined by my colleague Matthew Frampton, who will be doing the demo for you today. I'm just going to give us, a few words on Vision 33 and Sage Intacct before we get into the good stuff. So bear with me. Everyone can see my screen. Matthew and I go back a long way. We actually went to college together and we've been in a couple of roles together and we've been working at Vision 33 together now 5 years. So it's pretty cool. Here's our little agenda. So just a blurb on Vision, on Sage Intacct. Then we'll get right into the good stuff with Matthew. And then, of course, any questions we'll take at the end. All right. So before we move into that demo, just a little information about Vision 33. So here at Vision, we think that selecting the right software is obviously very important, but choosing the right partner is really what makes a difference for your business. So a few things that Vision 33 brings to the table. We have an extensive support team and industry experience. We have many long-term customers who rely on our partnership to support their business, and we're a leader in the Sage community with over 25 years service. Implementation is just the beginning of your journey. Vision 33 is here for long-term support and customer care. So it's not just a easy transaction. Once you decide to move forward with Sage Intacct, we'll help you through that implementation, the training, and then of course, we'll help you grow your solution as the years go on. Ultimately, it's our consistency, reliability, focus on excellent customer experience, and leveraging our knowledge to help you transform accounting frustrations into success and strategic growth. So like Sage, Vision 33 is a global company, but we like to say we operate as a small business. We do have consultants all over the globe, all across Canada, into the US and the UK. And of course, post-COVID, we are seeing more and more customers like us to come on site for that hand-holding experience, and that's something that we can offer. Our main operations are in the US, Canada, and the UK, and we have certified consultants in all of these areas to serve you locally. So here is just a snapshot of some of our excellent customers running Sage Intacct. They come from all over the spectrum, including nonprofits, SaaS, technology, professional services, and more. Some of these clients were previously our Sage 300 clients, and they have moved to Sage Intacct. We also see a lot of Sage 50 clients that are outgrowing their solution, QuickBooks, Dagio, Microsoft Dynamics. We see a lot of those because, of course, GP is moving out. So we have a lot of people that are coming off those solutions and moving to Sage Intacct. We even do some NetSuite rescues, is what we call them. So people leaving NetSuite and coming over to Sage Intacct. So I'm sure most of you have done your initial research on Sage Intacct, but here's just a few highlights for you. As you can see, Sage Intacct supports several industries and offers industry-specific functionality. Vision 33's biggest customer footprint is not-for-profit, where we have approximately 35 to 40% of our client base in that space. Building expertise in these verticals really helps us to guide our customers down the right path with their implementation, including your sector's best practice for reporting. So here is a quick snapshot of Sage's global reach. Obviously a huge company. Started in the UK and then of course made its way over to North America. They have two North American offices, global offices. That would be in Toronto and Atlanta. Also have an office out west as well in BC, downtown Vancouver. Beautiful spaces and offices. So here's just another snapshot that shows Sage's Intacct's global reach. So Sage adopted Sage Intacct in 2017. And since then, the numbers prove how much growth it has had. And Sage Intacct is Sage's flagship product at the moment. So they're putting all of their R&D and any additional funding into the solution to give it more features and more functionality. And if you're interested in the underlying numbers, Sage Intacct is as secure as it gets. You no longer need to worry about backups, downtime, and costly upgrades. It just works all the time. And all of these items are also included in your annual subscription, so you don't get an extra bill for that. Sage Intacct isn't a solution that was retrofitted for the cloud, because we see many of those, like Sage 300 that we're very familiar with. It's a cloud native solution from the very first line of code. It's an affordable, easy to use solution for finance teams that need only specialized finance tools. It's also a modular solution, which means you pay only for what you need now and can add more functionality when you need it. We call Sage Intacct a best of breed solution, best of breed in financial accounting. Its open API makes it easy to seamlessly integrate with other best of breed solutions. One of the main benefits of Sage Intacct for sure. For integrations, because I feel like everyone I talk to these days is interested in integrations and how we're going to integrate to other mission critical solutions that they have in house. Sage has what's called the Sage Intacct Marketplace, and it's filled with pre-built integrations to other best of breed solutions for CRM, e-commerce, and so much more. And if the solution you want to integrate isn't on that Sage Intacct Marketplace, Vision 33 can build the integration for you using Saltbox, which is our exclusive cloud-based integration solution built by our automation and integration experts in-house. And just a final word about Sage Intacct's embedded AI, the big buzzword of 2025 for sure. While it's not built into our demo environment just yet, we want to introduce you to Sage Copilot. Basically, Sage Copilot is like getting a very smart productivity assistant. It gives you answers you can trust and tools for a smoother, faster month-end close. So be sure to ask your consultant about Sage Copilot when they follow up with you. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to turn things over to Matthew. Everyone enjoy the demo, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Terry. Hi, everyone. As Terry mentioned, I'm Matthew. I'm going to walk us through our weekly demo here today. Before we get started, just a couple of very quick notes, and I'm going to try to keep this a little quicker than normal because I've been looking for some more time to show actual functionality. Keep in mind again that it's a native cloud solution, wasn't retrofitted for the cloud or adapted to the cloud. It was built in the cloud. So that means a couple of things. You can access your system anywhere, anytime from any machine. You will not have to deal with on-site servers, server maintenance, server updates, nothing on-prem. So those are immediate cost savings and updates to the solution. So Intacct will actually update automatically 4 times per year. It's a very seamless update process. It doesn't happen during your regular business hours. It's not going to make your solution slow or unavailable. And there's no onus on you whatsoever. You don't need to do anything for the solution to update. In fact, you can't even stop it. Not that you would ever want to, but if for some strange reason you did want to, it doesn't happen. Everybody in your geographical region is on the same version of Intacct as you, and that goes out across the board. So nice to know that your solution is always being improved, updated, just fixed if there's any holes in it. Just nice to know that you're going to get a solution that is adapting with the times and can grow with you as your business grows. So with that, let's jump into actual functionality. So Intacct does a lot of stuff really well, from your core financial accounting modules to start to multi-entity, multi-currency management, and through other modules if you want to build on to the core. So if you need something like fixed asset management or inventory or project costing and billing or just project tracking, then there are additional modules that you can build on. So Intacct's going to do all of that stuff really, really well. But where it really stands out from the competition, in my opinion, is with its financial reporting. Not just the financial reports that it can build, because sure, you'll find similar financial reports elsewhere, but it's the ease of building those reports, the ease of isolating data that you need to isolate and report on to drive analytical decision making. That's what really makes it just stand out for me. A little bit of background before I started implementing Intacct with Vision 33 around 5 years ago, I did work as a financial accountant for around 10 years. I have been a chartered professional accountant since 2015. When I first started implementing Intacct, and even still today, when I build a report for a client, I sometimes find myself saying, if I could report on these particular things as easy as I'm setting it up for my clients to do now, maybe I wouldn't gotten sick of month ends or year ends or being audited. Maybe I would have had a little bit more patience and stuck around just working as a financial accountant. But I don't know. That's a hypothetical, but I do find myself saying that. The backbone of what makes all of that so easy in Intacct comes from what Intacct labels dimensions. So out of the box, you will get access to a number of dimensions. Customer, vendor, employee, they are technically dimensions, but I don't talk to those as much as I talk to the other dimensions because you're not going to repurpose them for something else. Or every business has clients, every business has vendors, every business has employees. But the dimensions out of the box that you may use to drive your reporting will be the class dimension, the department dimension, the entity/location dimension. So these two are kind of intertwined with one another, where the rest of them are kind of free for alls. And then you'll also get access to the item dimension. Now, you do not need the inventory module to get the item dimension. The item dimension comes out of the box as part of the purchasing module and the order entry module. So it is just another dimension that you can report on. The way that I like to try to simplify and help people understand what dimensions are, I say a couple of things. First of all, think of them as different buckets of reporting, different drivers of your reports. Like if you ever find yourself saying, I need to be able to quickly look at my revenue by X, my net income by Y, my payroll expenses by Z, my sales by O, whatever it may be, whatever that variable is in those few statements I just said, those would be what we would end up making as your dimensions. And the dimensions are exactly that. When you're entering transactions in to the system, you tag a combination of a GL account plus any dimension or any number of dimensions at the line level that you need so that you can track that financial data to help make decisions in the future or to look back at data retrospectively. It's fully reportable. So these dimensions kind of function as a build on to your general ledger accounts. They work pretty well just the same way that like a general ledger account with a sub account would work, but they save you the hassle of having to set up a vast amount of additional GL accounts and deal with that management and deal with that mapping on financial reports. So, like, if we were in a system that had a segmented chart of accounts that had sub accounts, and we wanted to track financial data across 5 different departments, for every GL account that we want to track the financial activity across 5 different departments, it's 5 separate GL accounts. It would be, we'll say GL account 4000 for revenue, 4000-100, 4000-200, 4000-300, and so on. And then you have to move on to your next GL account and the next one and the next one. And chances are you probably have upwards of 20, 25 accounts that you want to do that across. And then that is immediately 100 plus GL accounts. And that's going to make your chart of accounts just blow up and expand very, very quickly. So in Intacct, we use those dimensions as your reporting buckets instead. And what these allow you to do is, as I said, isolate data or combine data or slice and dice financial reports. Pretty well, if you can imagine it, we can do it with a dimension. So a couple of examples of this. Let's say I want to run a general ledger detail report, but I'm interested in isolating data for one of my dimensions or a combination of my dimensions. I can come in to run a general ledger detail report and I'll just run it for a few months in 2019. I'm just going to run it on my P&L accounts. I'm not going to worry about balance sheet. We do see some clients use dimensions across balance sheet items, but I would say the vast majority use them more across P&L accounts. And I'm going to say I only want to see transactions related to my services department. And this very quickly will run a general ledger detail report for me, and it will only pull out transactions that are related to my service department. So it allows me to very easily isolate my data. And you see here that I'm showing the department ID on my general ledger detail report, and we can see that every transaction that has returned on the report that I ran is related to that department. So that's a really quick way to isolate some data. And you can do combinations of dimensions. Maybe you want to isolate transactions from a particular vendor and a particular department. I can come and run this general ledger detail report, and I can choose my department of 200, but I can also say only show it to me if my vendor was Lenovo. I'm going to expand my search here just because I think I have a better chance of actually returning a result if I do that. And we'll see. So I don't get anything there. Now, there's a quick way where I could figure out how to show you something, those filters working, because the system, the general ledger detail report in Intacct does allow me to do some things that I hadn't seen in a GL detail report before. I can actually choose to display my vendor on my general ledger detail report. So down here, I can click and choose, say, show me my vendor. I'm going to go with my vendor name instead of my ID. I'm going to go ahead and run it. I just want you to see this filter actually functioning as it should. This is running for a full year. Let's see if I get down to my expenses, if I can find myself a vendor here. I'm sure I will. Here we go. Global Properties Inc. So you see there's a transaction here for Global Properties Inc. If I wanted to isolate this data, I could come back out and change my vendor to be Global Properties Inc. And then I can click View, and now you will get an example of the filters working as they should. So it just brings out, it just happens that there's one transaction, but even still, you can see how easy it can become to isolate particular data for groups of dimensions. So really great stuff. And now just an example of how the dimensions work when you're keying transactions. Like if I were putting in an accounts payable transaction for something like rent or insurance, we'll stick with rent. If I wanted to allocate out my rent across different departments, I don't need to choose a vast amount of different GL accounts. I would choose the same GL account on every single line level as such. And I would then just tag the department over here on each line to allocate it out. There are ways to set up allocation predetermined percentages if you wanted to do that as well. I just don't have it in this environment. But you can also use your transaction amount field here, almost like you can use Excel. So let's say we want to split this 20%, 30%, 10%, 25%, and I think that would leave me with 15 here. And say the total bill is for 2,500. In my screen here, I can put 2,500 and an asterisk for multiplication. I can say times 30% if that's the percentage that we wanted to allocate to our sales department. Then I could go 2,500 times 0.2, which would put me up to 50, and so on. I don't think I need to go down through the rest to kind of show how that's functioning, but there are some nice conveniences for data input in Intacct as well. So that's how we can use dimensions. And like I said, you can tag any number of dimensions on each line. It's not just one, like I can only tag one department. I can't tag multiple departments on the same line. You just have to split it into multiple lines. But I can tag other dimensions, such as a project, such as a task related to that project, such as a location and a class if I wanted to, and a program. When the list goes on, how many ever dimensions you are using, you can tag them all at the one line level. So we've seen how a general ledger detail report works, but how does it translate to financial reports? And it's very, very similar. You can isolate data, or you can choose to expand reports by your dimensions. So what I like to do is just quickly here, come in and run a fairly standard P&L. I've built this P&L. I didn't build the groupings. They came out of the box. We can build the groupings, but I use the out of the box groupings for my demos. I'm showing the current month, which I did set to December 31st, showing the prior month, and then showing a period variance month over month, and I'm showing my entire year P&L here. So we'll see that the entire P&L is 2.526. Now, before I move on to the split of the reports, I just know this question will get asked. The reports are fully drillable. So if you click on a dollar amount, that will drill you into the GL detail report for that group of accounts. If you click on another dollar amount, that will drill you back to a source transaction, whether that's a journal entry or an accounts payable transaction, whatever it may be. In this case, it actually is just a journal entry. So we'll come back and we'll notice the amount of $2.5 million here for the full year's P&L. Now, maybe I want to see this P&L, this full year P&L in a number of different ways. Maybe I want to see it by department. Maybe I want to see trailing 12 months. Maybe I want to see it, my expenses by my vendors. Any of those things. I just want to show you how quick and easy it is to do. So I have a report already ready here to expand by my department. But I'm going to go into the build of the report first because I'm going to show you a couple of those things I just mentioned. So first of all, this is already set up to break out by department. So if we preview this report as of the same time frame, you'll see now we get an individual P&L for each of my different departments. We have a sum over to the far right of all my departments. I'll zoom in a little bit here. And then we see that it reconciles to the full 2.52 million. So we know it's a fully reconciled account or report, apologies. Now again, fully drillable. And if I drill in from this view of the report, like if I drill into my general and admin expenses for my admin department, it is drilling me into that filtered GL detail report, not a GL detail report that is for everything. So it really convenient for the drill downs as well, just with that filtering maintaining its position. But maybe you want to change up how you're viewing this. Maybe you want to see it trailing 12 months. All you would need to do is duplicate this report. I'm not going to do that, but it is just click duplicate and give it a new name and then go edit that report. You would then come to your columns section and change your expand by away from departments and into time periods and say expand by months and then re-preview this. And as quickly as that, you have a trailing 12 month, Maybe you want to see a trailing 12-month P&L and you want to see your revenue expanded by your customers and your expenses expanded by your vendors. You can leave this expanded, your columns expanded to be a trailing 12-month. You can come to your rows. You can tell the system, I'm going to take my revenue. I want to expand this out by my customers. And I'm going to come down to my operating expenses. I'm going to expand this out by my vendors. I just want to see who my top, I want a quick view of my top customers and my vendors. I don't know why that last selection did not stick for me. There we go, it stuck that time. I'll just expand one of these groups out. It doesn't like where I had it selected, that's all. Anyway, if I run this now, it's going to take an extra second to break out because I'm asking it to break out all my financial data for a full year across multiple dimensions. So it is doing a little bit of work here in the background. There we go. So now we have a trailing P&L. Our revenue, each revenue section is broken out by our customers. So we can see our subscription revenue by our customers. We can see our revenue, our services revenue by our customers, our other revenue by our customers. And when we get down into the expenses, we would see our expenses broken out. It looks like the majority of our expenses are actually from an allocation because it's a demo environment. I haven't entered any payables in here. So they're all journal entries. So we're getting no vendor. So not the best example that I chose for the vendors there, but I think you get the idea of the capabilities that you'll get. And this is just dipping our toes in the water. This is just a gloss over of what is possible in Intacct. So that's a little bit on that, the financial reporting. Now, building off of the financial reporting in Intacct is the dashboard capabilities. So the dashboard functionality really, really strong as well. And people love what they can do with these dashboards. So I'm going to just jump into a CFO dashboard here. This is just one dashboard to start. While this is loading, I will point out that you can have as many dashboards in the system as you want. There's no limit to how many dashboards you can have. And these are free available to you out of the box with every subscription, so no added cost. The dashboards can be role-based, they can be user-based, they can be available to everybody. You can kind of just pick and choose on a dashboard by dashboard basis who can and cannot see each individual dashboard. So you get all the security that you could want with the dashboards as well. Just protect your data to only be able to be seen by the people that should be able to see it. So the dashboard is now loaded in. At the top here, we've got what is more or less just a P&L. The top line here is our revenue. The bottom line is our expenses. The middle line in the orange is our net income. We then have some performance indicators. So our services revenue is being compared against budget. Our total revenue is being compared against prior month. Our labor costs against prior month, our chargeability, operating expenses versus budget. We're showing these in percentages for the most part. And as you can see, we've changed it here. These have a little happy face instead of an arrow. This can be an arrow, it can be a flag, it can be a thumbs up or thumbs down, or a happy face or a sad face. We generally stick with the arrows. They are probably the most professional looking, but we just like to show the flexibility here. We scroll down, we've got some more graphs. So this is a horizontally stacked bar graph, a vertically stacked bar graph, pie graph, more report cards. These report cards I call them report cards, they're performance indicators, but I call them report cards. These are showing the dollar value difference rather than percentage for the most part. And this one's being compared against 3 months prior. This one's still against budget, but like what this compares against, it can be last month, it can be 2 months ago, it can be 3 months ago, it can be 74 months ago. It can be year to date, fiscal year to date this year versus fiscal year to date last year. Like you can really simply pick and choose what your comparative number is, your comparative time period for each performance indicator. We've got a few more graphs, a few more performance indicators, a few more graphs, just to show as much of the capability as we can. Now, these dashboards are just like the financial reports. They can be filtered for particular departments or dimensions. You can pick and choose the dimension filters that show on each dashboard. On this one, we have just a department filter and a location filter, but I could put a filter here for any dimension in the system that you're using. They're a little bit interactive where you can click your key at the bottom of your graphs and you can kind of hide and show. Like if you want to isolate a part of that graph, you can use your key down below to do so. So that's kind of nifty. I don't know how common it is for people to really use that. What I do know people definitely use are the next two things. First of all, you can click show data on any financial graph, and it very quickly gives you a table that gives you the dollar value of all the data points on your graph. So I certainly know that this is used pretty commonly across my clients. It's a nice little trick to know that's available. And it stands for every graph that you have. You can see the kind of behind the scenes of what's structuring that graph. But my favorite part about the graphs is since they are derived from financial reports, they do maintain drill down functionality. So if I hover over a dot for my revenue, I can see that the revenue for August of 2019 is 1.234 million. If I want to see those details, I click that dot. It opens up the revenue portion of my P&L. If I want to see expenses, I click on an expense dot. It opens up the expense portion of my P&L. And I don't think I have to click it, but if I click a net income dot, it's going to open up my full P&L. And that stands for every graph that you see here. So if I click on this part of this bar graph, it is going to drill me into that specific part of that graph. If I click on this one, so you get the drill down capabilities. And from here, of course, you can keep drilling back. It's not limited to that one screen. The drill downs don't take you away from your dashboard. They pop open in new windows. So when you're ready to get back to your dashboard, you close a couple of windows and here you are. So that's one dashboard. I'm just going to bring another dashboard up on the screen. I'm not going to talk to it a whole lot because there's not much else to say. I just want you to see that different data can be put on the dashboards and they can be structured differently. So this one, again, more report cards at the top. We've got an actual versus budget report here. We've got a close through summary here that have some really funky close through dates because I use this demo environment a lot to test out certain things and push certain buttons. So if you see funky close through dates, that's why. We have a checklist here. We have another report that has some conditional formatting built into it. So as the numbers get higher, the coloring gets darker. Some approval lists, cash balance trend, and so on. So just a little glimpse of another dashboard in here. Moving away from financial reports and dashboards, something that I would like to talk about is the multi-entity capabilities in Intacct. And with the multi-entity capabilities, we might as well talk about multi-currency and global consolidations. So if you do work for an organization that has multiple operating entities under its umbrella that all have to provide their own financial reports, they can be in the same currency, they can be in different currencies. It's super easy to maintain in Intacct. Almost every role that I worked in prior to doing what I do now, I had this. And I know that if I was doing work in one of my companies and I wanted to do work in another of the companies, I had to log out of the first company, log back into a separate company. And it never really ever took too long. It was just one of those things that was an annoyance in my day. For some reason, I was just like, oh, I don't want to have to log out and log back in. In Intacct, you will not have to do that. You can see here the greens or the teal, these are my operating entities. The blues that you see, these are locations. Remember how I talked about in my dimension speech that the entity and location dimension were kind of intertwined with one another? And this is how. I can use, if we look back at my dimensions for a moment, when it comes to my class dimension, my department dimension, my item dimension, I can use any selection from either of those lists in any of my entities, right? They're kind of available to all of them unless we choose to restrict them. Locations have a one-to-one relationship with an entity or with another location that has that parent-child relationship. So this hierarchy that you see here is not limited. Like I could split St. John's into central, east, and west, and so on. So you can have an unlimited layer of locations there. But back to my other point, my entities here. If I want to work in one of these companies, there's no logging out and logging back in. I have USA company open one in one tab. If I want to do work in Canada company, I hit my drop down here and I choose my Canada company, and that zaps me into my Canada company. My USA one company is still open in the other tab. My Canada company is opening on this tab, and I could have all of my entities open at the same time if I wanted to. Personally, I don't do that because it's so easy to switch. I don't want to have 7 or 8 tabs across my screen when it's just as simple to click this drop down and open up my company. Now my Australia company is going to open, but you can have them all open, and you can have as many people in here working as you need. There's no limit. There's no multi-user mode. So I mean, I should say there's no single user mode. It's you can have as many people in here as you like at all times. There's no limit to the amount of the users you can have logged in. A couple of convenient things that come with that, any intercompany transactions that will happen in your business, the system is going to automatically post those for you. Like if you transfer money out of a bank account owned by one company into a bank account owned by another company, the system's going to do that do to, do from entry for you. All the companies are going to share a chart of accounts, a list of vendors, a list of customers. We can restrict certain lists, but to only be available if we want to. But the idea of setting that stuff up to be shared is if I want to make a new entity right now, I don't have to do anything except add a new entity. When I make that new entity, it has a chart of accounts, it has a list of customers, it has a list of vendors, it has an invoice template, it has financial reports. So creating a new entity just becomes super easy to do. It's a 15 or 20 minute job, where I know in other systems it's quite difficult to do. They can all process multi-currency transactions, and at any point in time, I can create a set of consolidation books to consolidate the financials for whichever of these companies I choose, any number of them, into any currency that I want. It's pretty quick and easy. So that was a lot of things said. Let's look at how some of it operates. First of all, the intercompany transactions. The simplest transaction that we have would be a funds transfer, right? If we transfer money out of a bank account owned by one company into a bank account owned by another. I know just from working in this environment multiple times a week, bank account 100 is owned by company 100. Bank account 200 is owned by company 200. And you can see that on the background of your accounts if you were to go to that screen. There's no view option here. But if I say I'm going to transfer money, say I transfer money $25,000 out of this bank account and into this one, that would mean, of course, that company 200 would now owe company 100 $25,000, or company 100 would owe company $225,000 less than they did before, depending on what position the companies are in with one another. But the do to, do from transaction would stay the same either way. So if I go ahead and just post that transaction and we go back and we look at the journal entry related to that transfer of funds, the system would have done the entire transaction. It transfers the money out of the GL account owned by related to that bank account and into the GL account owned or related to the second bank account. And then it also records my do to and do from entry in each company appropriately. So the interentity transactions, they're going to come off your shoulders. If I put in an accounts payable transaction in one entity and it gets paid out of a bank account owned by another entity for some reason, Intact will do the intercompany transaction. If we send an invoice to a client and they send us electronic payment and they send it to a bank account owned by a different entity, we can just record that receipt in the company. The system will record the due to and due from for us. It's as simple as that. So in both companies as well, not just the one, right? That's kind of the kicker is it does it in both companies. You don't have to go into either to do it. So that's the interentity stuff. Multi-currency. So if you have the multi-currency environment and you want to put in multi-currency transactions, I can come to put in an accounts payable transaction. I can choose a vendor here. Say I choose Mustang Janitorial. They're in Calgary. I'm in my USA company, which has a functional currency of US dollars. Intact calls functional currency base currency, by the way. So if you hear me say base currency, that is what I mean. It's their functional currency. And as I scroll down, we'll see that I can change this transaction currency to be Canadian dollars. I can say this vendor, Mustang Janitorial, this particular time has billed us in Canadian dollars. You see the exchange rate date of today, and there's an exchange rate already here. I did not upload exchange rates into the system. I'm actually off today, so I wasn't even at my computer until 5 minutes before this demo started. These are sourced from Oanda, so they come directly into the system every single day automatically. You don't have to do anything. And it's a fully historical calendar. I can change this exchange rate date back 20 years, and the system will refresh and tell me what the exchange rate was at that point in time. Then I come down into my table and I put in, say they bill us 250 Canadian dollars based on an exchange rate from 2005, that would translate to $213.55 in US dollars. But if I change my exchange rate back to 2025, my exchange rate's going to change. And now you see that that equals 179.60. So we'll respect the exchange rate. You can bring in your own exchange rates. You can override the exchange rate that is here. Like if I change this to 3, this bumps up to 750. And then when we record the payment for this bill, the system will look at what the exchange rate was when we entered the transaction, what the exchange rate is when we pay the transaction, and it will automatically record the FX gain or loss on that transaction for us. I know in a lot of systems, if you have a vendor that sometimes sends you invoices in one currency and then other times sends you invoices in a different currency, you have to have separate vendors. That is not the case in Intacct. I can put in transactions to this same vendor in Canadian dollars, Australian dollars, Mexican pesos, trying to remember the names of all these currencies, GBP, obviously Great Britain pound, South African rand. So whatever you need. You don't have to have multiple vendors. That's multi-currency transactions. Now on to consolidating your financials. So as I mentioned a few moments ago, you can create a set of consolidation books to consolidate the financials for any number of these companies into any currency you need. All you have to do is set up a new set of consolidation books. You will give the consolidation books a name. I'm just going to go with a quick test here. You pick the currency you want these consolidation books to consolidate into. I know somebody watching right now is going, he said any currency in the world, but I only see 5. These are just the ones I have enabled. I will show you how we can enable other currencies in a moment, but we can put any currency here that you need. We would choose the ending spot rate and the weighted average rate for our balance sheet and income statement accounts. We would map these currency gains or losses on consolidation into what we call a cumulative translation adjustment account. Just goes on the equity portion of your consolidated financials. Then we come to the entities to consolidate tab, and we just pick the entities that we want included in this new set of consolidation books. We can turn on inter-entity auto elimination. You see the last tab on my screen right now is the accounts to override tab. As soon as I click this checkbox, we get a new tab, which is our elimination accounts. So Intacct will handle any eliminations automatically for you. We'll do any inter-entity auto eliminations that should occur on consolidation. These are the standard due to and due from accounts. You can add more GL accounts to eliminate manually if you have others, such as some like intercompany revenue. You can say that this needs to eliminate upon consolidation as well. Once your books are set up, you would just come out to run a consolidation. From the run a consolidation screen, you choose the set of books that you want to run a consolidation for. You choose the month you want to consolidate. You can click consolidate with options is my preference because you do get to see the exchange rates that are being used to take Australian dollars to US dollars, Canadian dollars to US dollars, South African rands to US dollars. You can override these if you want to, the consolidation rates, and then you can click consolidate now, and the system will consolidate that month for you. Once your consolidations have run, you can view consolidated financial statements very easily. You can have your consolidation statements ready for all of your different consolidation books simultaneously. So right here, we have a consolidated balance sheet for my global books in US dollars. We have a consolidated profit and loss for my global books in US dollars. We have a consolidated P&L for my non-US books in GBP, a consolidated P&L for my North American books in US dollars, and then a consolidated balance sheet for both of those consolidation books respectively, one in GBP and one in USD. So a great global consolidation module available as well. Next, I'm going to move on to the purchasing module. Now, just keep in mind that the purchasing module in Intacct is just a more powerful AP module, okay? If you don't need all the capabilities that I'm about to show, you can just use the AP module. It is a very, very good AP module. It has some conveniences that I hadn't seen in other systems. Fixing keying errors is a breeze. You don't have to do new transactions, paying vendors, reversing payments. We can print checks, whether they're micro checks or pre-printed check stock. We can issue EFT payments or ACH files, not directly out of the system. Like the system will generate the file for you that you download. It'll have all your vendor's banking information. You download that file out of Intacct and you upload it to the bank to trigger your EFT or your ACH payment. So a Go module, and we can do approvals on transactions and payments. So a very thorough AP module. We show the purchasing module rather than the AP module just because it comes with a little bit more power. It allows you to build your procurement workflow from start to finish, like decide whether or not you're going to have purchase requisitions. And if you need multiple different types of purchase requisitions, whether that's just categorization for internal purposes or to route approvals, like maybe our standard purchase requisition is going to go to follow one set of approval rules, but our travel authorization should go elsewhere. Like I do have this as a practical example. Purchase requisition for one of my clients goes to like the project managers for approval, but a travel authorization actually goes to like the employee's manager for approval. So that we can create separate templates to make more flexible approval policies. You are going to get a full three-way match, four-way match to ensure that your procurement process is followed correctly. We can turn on things like a variance allowance. So if we have an approval policy on our purchase requisitions, but we've decided not to put one on our purchase orders, but we want some type of clause in there that says, yeah, okay, if the purchase order is approved or the purchase requisition is approved, I'm not worried about the PO unless when the PO comes in, it's 5% higher than what the original purchase requisition was. And that 5% is just a number I pulled out of my head. It's probably a pretty standard number, probably why it came to mind, but it can be 15%. It can be 22.75%. You pick the percentage. We just type it into the system and say, I don't want my PO to go for approval unless it's this much different than the original purchase requisition. So you get little flexibilities like that too. There are conveniences in there to help with keying time and keying errors, and the approvals that can happen in the system, they are in the system. Approvers will receive an email, they approve it in the system, they can leave notes, they can decline with notes, they can make edits instead of putting it back for reapproval if that's what you want to give them the capability to do. You can set up delegations of approval. So if somebody's going on vacation, you can delegate their approvals out to somebody else while they're away, and you can set up an unrestricted approver to make sure nothing gets stuck in limbo ever. So let's have a peek at some of that stuff. If we jump into the purchasing module and we take a look at a purchase requisition, my list of purchase requisition, we're going to see that this one here is submitted. If we are curious who this is submitted to for approval, we can click on the submitted button. We can click on the approval history screen, and we can see that this is going through a four-step layer of approval. It is going to the project manager first, After it goes to the project manager, it is going to go to the department manager of Ryan. After that, it is going to go to the location manager, which is Emma, and then it's going to go through a value approval. Now, how did all of this get determined? And by the way, Ryan would not have to do two approvals here. The system will recognize that he is a consecutive approver, and it will one stamp of approval from Ryan in this case will say this is okay. So if we just kind of what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take a quick snip of this just so we can reference it very quickly with what I'm about to show as well. If my snipping tool will work, there it is. Going a little bit slow for me. So on the purchase requisition, we have an approval policy set up that says project manager first, then department manager, then location manager. So the system got that based on how we entered the transaction. When this transaction was entered, and I believe I was the one that entered this, it's another thing you can see here on the audit trail who actually put the transaction in. Down at the line level, you're going to see that we've tagged a department, we've tagged a project. We would have also tagged a location because it's a mandatory field. By the way, any fields that are here, they don't have to be hidden like this. They can be clicked and dragged and brought up into your main input table so that you don't have to go looking for them. Just a nuance of my demo environment here. So if we look at that, we can see that first it was supposed to go to the project manager, which was Ryan. If I click on this project, you will actually see that we have assigned a manager to this project, and it is Ryan. So that is how the system determined that it goes to Ryan. It would have done the same thing for the department, because the department manager was my next step, just happens to also be Ryan. Then it was going to my location manager, which is Emma. And then it was going through a value approval, a progressive value approval. So just to jump back and show that again, what a progressive value approval is based off the value of this transaction, whatever level $125,000 falls into, whether that's level one, level two, level three, level four, like you pick those levels, you say level one is 0 to 10,000 or 0 to 25,000, and then level two picks up or level one left off, level three, and so on. A progressive value approval would mean that if this falls under level three of the levels that we have set up, then it would go through level one first, it would then go through level two, and then it would go to a level three person. If we just choose value approval direct, not progressive, it would skip level one, skip level two, and go right into level three approval. So that is what value approval means. So those are the most common ways that we see approvals routed in the system and how we can leverage our dimensions to streamline that process. The last thing that I want to note on the approvals there is the approval policy for every document can be different. Like I can have a different type of value, a different approval workflow on my quotes or my travel authorizations, and a different one on my purchase orders, each document. So you can really set up your approvals as you need. Now, we see a document here with a state of pending on it. What that means is it's been entered, it went through any approval policies if that was necessary, and it is moved along, it's ready to move along the workflow. So instead of having to come and look up this purchase requisition and look at the details on it, I can just come and click convert and say I want to convert this into a purchase order. And then it's going to copy all of the information off of my original purchase requisition and just plant it here for me. So I can make any changes if I need to, like if the price changed or if we only received half of our rent. So happens I use rent here, but you can do that, and that would create a partial conversion, and then I can submit this for approval. So that is how we can help keying strokes, keying time, and keying errors. And then these documents that read converted, that would mean that what I just did on this document has already been done on these documents. But how far along in the process they are, we can also tell from this audit trail. So we can click on the word converted, and that will show us that this transaction, this started as a purchase requisition, it was converted into a purchase order, and then that purchase order was converted into a vendor invoice. So this procurement is completely fulfilled. We see it's gone to an order and gone to an invoice. If we want to see the order, we can click on the order. It will drill us into the order. If we want to see the invoice, we can click on the invoice. It will drill us into the invoice. So really great stuff there for a purchasing module. So before I open up the floor for questions, because I realize I'm at my time, I just want to say that I don't want anybody to leave here today thinking that they seen all of Intacct. if I'm being completely honest with you, you have seen, I'd probably say less than 10% of what I can do with Sage Intacct. Like, I don't even like to say we've scratched the surface of this solution. We're just glossing it. Like, we're just giving you a super high level. There are out of the box modules that I didn't even talk about. I didn't talk about accounts receivable or order entry. I didn't talk about budgeting or cash management. I just don't have time in an hour. I demo Intact 3 or 4 times a week, I would estimate, and I don't schedule any demos for less than 2 hours because it's just there's too many things that I can dive into. So not only are there modules that I didn't even talk about or mention, such as order entry, accounts receivable, inventory control, employee expenses, project tracking, project costing and billing, time entry. There are parts of the modules or other modules that are kind of hidden. Like in accounts receivable, we can turn on revenue recognition where you can set up your revenue recognition standards and put an invoice to deferred revenue when it comes in and have the system recognize the revenue based off templates that you set up. The modules that I did show, accounts payable and purchasing and global consolidations and some of GL and some of dimensions, even those modules I'm only glossing over, just scratching the surface of those modules. There are other functionalities in those modules that we could really dive into. Like I could spend an hour and a half alone probably on the purchasing module itself, let alone trying to squeeze it into an hour weekly demo. So just a heads up that there's a vast amount of other things that we could show you. We're hoping just kind of pique your interest and give you a nice summary here. So if there's anything more you want to see, all you have to do is reach out and let us know, and we'll be happy to do that. And now I'll go ahead and open up the floor for questions.
Thank you, Matthew. As always, a great job. We do have one question. The question is, why am I not able to see the dashboard item when I look under the application section?
So that would be a permission issue. Like if you're clicking under your applications here, like if you're into a if you're logged into some type of demo or test environment and you don't see dashboards, that is straight permissions. So somewhere on your user, there is a set of permissions. So if I jump into my users here and I pick a user, let's say I take Ava here and I look at her permissions and roles. Ava has a couple of roles. One role, she has the admin role. So if I go into her admin role, and I believe dashboards are going to be under company. Let me just see here. Dashboards. Yeah, you see dashboards here. So if you're not seeing dashboards when you're logged into an environment and you're clicking that drop down, then whoever set up your user and your permissions has not added this permission on whatever roles you have. So that's why you're not going to see it. To kind of prove that out, I don't think you need me to prove it, but I do like to kind of do that. If I come in here and I come to my user, my subscriptions, and I come to company, and I go ahead and I take away dashboards from my own user, and I don't mind doing this because I can just come give it back. If I take this away, just like that, and I save again, and then I refresh my browser, this might require a full logout and a full login because I am taking a full module away from myself, but I'm not sure. Nope. See, now I don't see dashboard. Taking it away from myself. So that is all that is why you wouldn't be seeing it. Anytime you can't see a menu option that someone else can see, it's 99% of the time it's just permission based.
All right. That's all the questions. I
I
hope
have
every
one. Can you
Oh,
hear me, Sue? Yeah, I have a a
Certainly
verbal.
can.
go ahead.
Absolutely.
A
Love
quick
it.
question for you. Yeah. So thank you so much, Matthew. That was very informative.
Thank
In
you.
terms of an FP&A tool, how robust is this? I couldn't tell from I know you only
And
had an hour.
FP&A, you're looking at some more hardcore budgeting, right? Like
Yep,
probably creating
correct.
scenarios, adapting for increases in number of employees, what if
Exactly.
scenarios, yeah,
Variances and
cash flow
stuff. Yep,
forecasting.
you got it.
Intact doesn't really have anything out of the box itself. But again, this kind of comes back to something Terry mentioned earlier in the demo with the open API, right? Where you can find an FP&A tool that you like. Our go-to, and we have a partnership with,
Yep.
our go-to is Martis Solutions. Sage actually does have their own tool. It's called Sage Intacct Planning, but
Okay.
Martis is far superior in many, many ways. But the thing that you need to remember when it comes to these integrations with Intacct and Martis is while technically you do have two separate solutions, like you will have a login for Martis, you will have a login for Intacct.
Okay.
The open API means they talk together. So when you log into Martis, you can connect it to your Intacct and you can say, I want you to pull out all my dimensions. I want you to pull out all my actuals from this year, last year, 3 years ago. Like you give it the time frame that you wanted to pull out your actuals. It pulls your actuals out of Intacct and into Martis if you want it to. And then you
Okay.
can build your budget in Martis. Martis does all these things that anything you're going to want an FP&A tool to do, Martis is going to do it. And then when your budget is developed, you push a button and it kicks your budget into Intacct. And then you can put your budget on financial reports. So like while it is a separate system, it doesn't ever truly feel like a separate system because they talk back and forth to one another as you need them to. So this would be where we would lean for an FP&A tool for sure.
Awesome. So this is just the kind of stacking I was looking for. I figured
Yeah.
I would need something else. Now, in terms of advanced Excel and any of those features, would I be able to pull raw data from Sage Intacct, or does it pull in the data from elsewhere?
For in Excel,
Yes, and
like
I'm
you want to be
asking
able to see, you want kind of like a Power BI
exactly,
connection.
probably
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Yep.
again, Intacct has Power BI connections so that you can do that if that's what you want to do. Like it's super easy to export anything out of Intacct into Excel, like any financial report. Even like if I want to export out my list of vendors or my list of AP transactions, I can export anything into Excel with ease, right?
Perfect.
But if you want the ability to open up Excel and set filters in Excel, say grab my data from this date to that date for these GL
Right.
accounts for that department, then you want the Power BI connector. Sometimes I don't understand why people want the Power BI connector because it's so easy to run a financial report and export it to Excel.
Right.
But there are plenty of people out there that are much smarter than me and have their good reasons for wanting the Power BI connections. So I don't question too hard, but again, you can export anything out into Excel really easily.
I get it. Very good. Awesome. Thank you so much.
No sweat at all. My pleasure.
All right, we'll park it there. Again, please follow up with your sales consultant if you're in discussion with someone already. If not, feel free to reach out to myself, Matthew. We are here to help. And I hope everyone has a great day and we'll chat soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye now.